I love it when SJW NPC garbage gets a real study. The evolutionary advantages of playing victim. They looked into this, and oh boy, we got some scientific facts up in here. Victimhood is defined in negative terms, the condition of having been hurt, damaged, or made to suffer. Yet humans have evolved to empathize with the suffering of others and to provide assistance so as to eliminate or compensate for that suffering. So basically, the professional victims who keep stirring up shit so they can, profit off of it, they call us hateful and unempathetic and unsympathetic, but they only are allowed to keep existing because of everyone else's empathy and sympathy. I wish people were a lot tougher, or at the very least, I wish they were more discerning. I wish they'd look into what someone's actually complaining about. If it's a legit harm, yeah, sure, help them. If it's a case of hurt fifis, they need to be told to go fuck themselves. Consequently, signaling suffering to others can be an effective strategy for attaining resources. Yep. Taking advantage of suckers. That's what this is. They are milking these suckers. Victims may receive attention, sympathy, and social status, as well as financial support and other benefits. And that's why everyone is rushing to be a victim instead of being independent these days. And being a victim can generate certain kinds of power. It can justify the seeking of retribution. That's the big one right there. They want to hurt somebody, but they're not allowed to. Then they just smear that person as a victimizer in the media, and now they have the public's blessing. Oh, sure, you can destroy that person now. Provide a sense of legitimacy or psychological standing to speak on certain issues. Yeah, we've heard that before, right? Oh, unless you're a woman or unless you're black, you can't talk about these issues. But then, of course, they don't like it when we flip it back on them. How when feminazis are talking about men's rights issues, we really need to shut them up. Unless you're a man, you can't talk about this. Yeah, why don't you tell me about my experience as a man? Go ahead. And may even confirm moral impunity by minimizing the blame for victims' own wrongdoings. Now, that's one of the main reasons they do this. Like how you have all these fucking pedophiles out there virtue signaling against Lolly, for example. They do that to distract attention away from themselves. Like, oh, look, I'm a good person. I'm against drawings. Just don't look into me. Don't fucking put me under the microscope. Don't reveal that I'm actually diddling real kids. Nope, don't do that. Presumably, most victims would eagerly forego such benefits if they were able to free themselves from their plight. Yeah, we know that's bullshit right now. We know this is bullshit. They are playing the victim so they can keep milking resources out of people. And as long as people keep giving it to them, they will keep doing it. But when victimhood yields benefits, it incentivizes people to signal their victimhood to others or exaggerate or even fake victimhood entirely. Oh, you mean like how every single freaking major hate crime has been a hoax in recent years? Yeah, they keep throwing out that bullshit statistic about how hate crimes are on the rise, but they count the hoaxes among the hate crime numbers. This is especially true in contexts that involve alleged, psychic harms, and where appeals are made to third parties, with the claimed damage often being invisible, unverifiable, and based exclusively on self-reports. Which is why I never believe those anymore. Unless there's actual evidence, or I have the same policy like TFM does. Oh, you're accusing this person of a crime? Did you file a police report? No, then I don't believe you. Go away. Such circumstances allow unscrupulous people to take advantage of the kindness and sympathy of others by co-opting victim status for personal gain, and so people do. And they will continue to do so until they're punished for it. This is why I keep beating this dead horse. This is why I keep saying that the punishment for a false accusation needs to be the maximum that the falsely accused would have received had they been found guilty. Only then will the false accusation stop. Newly published research indicates that people more frequently signal their victimhood, whether real, exaggerated, or false, are more likely to lie and cheat for material gain and denigrate others as a means to get ahead. Wow, you mean we finally have a study proving what I've been saying for years? That virtue signalers are always bad people? I have never met a virtue signaler who's a good person. And by the same token, I've never met a good person who virtue signaled. And it's always these virtue signalers who happen to play the victim. They victim signal as well. Victimhood signaling is associated with numerous morally questionable personality traits such as narcissism, Machiavellianism, or the willingness to manipulate and exploit others for self-benefit, a sense of entitlement, that's a big one for them, and lower honesty and humility. All 100% true. But there's another group of people jumping in on this right now. People like us who are sick and tired of this are going to start abusing the system. Like, oh, well, if playing the victim is the only way to get ahead, I guess this is what I'm going to have to do then, isn't it? We can milk them back. We can manipulate and exploit the manipulators and exploiters. Nothing wrong with that. You do not have to feel guilty about it. You should not have any moral quandaries with this. Scholars from the Immorality Lab at the University of British Columbia, wow, they have an immorality lab, huh? The first I've heard of that. Created a victim signaling scale that measures how frequently people tell others of the disadvantages, challenges, and misfortunes they suffer. Those who scored higher on this victim signaling scale were found to more likely virtue signal. What did I just say? Verified again by science. To outwardly display signs of virtuous moral character, while actually behind the scenes being complete pieces of shit, while simultaneously placing less importance on their own moral identity. In other words, victim signalers were more interested in looking morally good, but less interested in being morally good than those who less frequently signal their victimhood. What have I been saying for years? I'm glad someone finally did the study and proved it. At this point, every time I see someone virtue signaling, I just assume they're a colossal piece of shit and I disengage. I'm going to start instantly blocking virtue signalers, to be honest with you. I lose nothing cutting these parasites out of my life. In one study, participants who scored higher on virtuous victim signaling, the combination of victim signaling and virtue signaling, were on average more likely to lie and cheat in a coin flip task in order to earn a bonus payment. What I say about virtue signalers being pieces of shit. In another study, participants were asked to imagine a scenario involving a colleague with whom they were in competition, in which something felt off, even though the colleague behaved in a genial manner. Highly virtuous victim signalers were more likely to interpret this ambiguous behavior as discriminatory and to make accusations about mistreatment from the colleague that were never described in the scenario. Doesn't this just describe everything we've been seeing in recent years, too, with all the fake hate crime hoaxes, all the fake accusations of racism and sexism and discrimination? Evil people like this need to be excluded. You ever notice that these are the types that are pushing for inclusivity the most? They know they are horrible, parasitic pieces of shit deep down. They know nobody wants to voluntarily hang out with them, so they want to force themselves on everybody else. But damn, are they in for a shock when the pendulum swings back? When people like me are the ones running businesses in the future? We're already taking precautions against these parasites. They will never get a foot in this door. In several of these studies, the researchers controlled for the internalization of morally virtuous traits, i.e. actually prioritizing virtue, and demographic variables that might be associated with increased vulnerability to true victimhood. The persistence of statistically significant effects suggests that there may be a personality type that, independent of one's actual experience of real victimhood or internalization of real virtue, drives individuals to signal virtuous victimhood as a means to extract resources from others. I could see how this could be an evolutionary thing. If this type of behavior is rewarded, you're going to get more of it. So what does TFM always say? Whatever you subsidize, you get more of. So if you keep subsidizing professional victims, you're letting everyone else know, hey, we want more professional victims. And then those people reproduce and pass this on to their kids. We are firmly in a stage of devolution right now, I believe. Our current year first world Western society is devolving people. Consistent with this theory, other recent work indicates that victimhood, or the enduring feeling that the self is a victim, may be a stable personality trait. And this is one of the reasons why I advocate for disengaging with these people. They are just broken. This is who they are. They will never get better. They will always do this. This personality trait is characterized by a need for others to acknowledge and empathize with one's victimhood, feelings of moral superiority. That describes both right and left-wing SJWs, by the way. And a lack of empathy for others' suffering. Yeah, they always at us for not empathizing with them as they celebrate someone they don't like dying. This personality trait was found to be relatively stable across time and relationship contexts, and was associated with higher perceived severity of received offenses, holding grudges, vengefulness, entitlement to behave immorally, rumination, distrust, neuroticism, and attribution of negative qualities to others. Yeah, see, and this here is where will this be a good time to go into the whole "you're just as bad as them" bullshit? Because all I want is to cut these horrible people out of my life. I'm not going to seek them out and seek vengeance and hold grudges. I just want them gone. All I want is to be left alone. And if they keep showing up to mess with me, I'll have to keep fighting them. But if they just fuck off and leave me alone, the entire war can be done. The entire battle can be over. Together, these findings suggest that claims of victimhood may be caused not only by objective states of suffering, but also by the characteristics of people making claims of victimhood. Liars. While we may not be able to control such traits in others, it is useful to examine some of the environmental factors that incentivize the expression of grievances. Yeah, I just like what I talk about with the relationships between men and women. The environment, the system is the problem, because it incentivizes these bad behaviors. If you punished these bad behaviors instead of incentivizing them, maybe we can finally fix them. In general, people reward victimhood signaling. I don't. The only way this is going to stop is if people get more stoic. If people just like, well, you've had a bad life? Well, shut the fuck up. So have we all. Welcome to the club. Cry me a river. You're on your own. For example, one study found that participants reported greater willingness to donate to a GoFundMe page for a young woman in need of a college tuition when she also mentioned her difficult upbringing, as compared to a control case with no extra details of past suffering were provided. So once again, you need to train yourself to be turned off by this stuff. When I can tell someone's trying to emotionally manipulate me, that actually turns me hostile to them instead of sympathetic. As soon as I spot the attempts at emotional manipulation, I'm basically done with you. In many cases, such a result is morally desirable. We want people to help those who have suffered and who are in greater need. However, when it is known that people can attain benefits by projecting certain biographical information, opportunists may be incentivized to exaggerate or falsely signal their own troubles. I would be much more willing to help someone who I knew was really suffering, but they were keeping it to themselves and just keeping their head down, and they were just grinding away. Those are the people that get my help. Just as people may fake competence to gain status and benefits, e.g. by doping in sports or using one's smartphone during pub trivia. Oh God, those trivia cheaters are. Why do you do that? Unless you're competing for money or something, why do you do that? And fake morality to attain a good reputation, like by behaving better in public context than in private situations. Yup, like pretty much everyone who reads about Lolly ending up being real pedophiles. Exactly. They may fake victimhoods to get undeserved sympathy and compensation. That's why they do it. They get the desired results. They keep getting rewarded for it, so they're gonna keep doing it. It's also important to remember that many claims of victimhood are made to strangers online, especially through social media or fundraising sites. This can increase the reach and effectiveness of insincere claims because they are directed towards strangers who have no basis for investigating or even entertaining suspicions of fake victimhood, except on pain of appearing callous. And this is precisely why I just assume it's all fake, especially if it's something that someone could be arrested for. Like, oh, so you're going to take this to social media, but you're not going to report this to the cops? I'm sorry, I don't believe you. Because the reason they don't report it to the cops is the cops actually investigate, and you could get into deep shit if you file a false police report. But there's no punishment for lying on social media. It's almost impossible to win a lawsuit on libel and slander. They can keep getting away with it. When a person knowingly wrongs someone in his or her family, circle of friends, community, or professional orbit, they often are willing to make amends. And so victims can often appeal directly to transgressors for recompense. Even if a transgressor has little remorse, nearby others, such as friends or family, aware of the harm, are often willing to provide sympathy and assistance. Yeah, if it's a tight-knit community and everyone knows each other, that's a different story. It's a lot harder to fake shit, too. Third-party appeals to strangers, on the other hand, are perhaps especially prone to falsehood because the soliciting party is appealing to individuals who don't know their circumstances or character. This certainly doesn't mean that all or even most appeals of this nature are fake. They are. I will say they fucking are. Almost all of them are fake. And you should not believe any of them without some hardcore evidence. At this point, anyone who falls for an online sob story and then they complain about it when they find out they've been conned, you deserve it. People like me have been warning about this shit for years. If you're so stupid you refuse to heed our warnings, you deserve whatever the hell the con men take from you. Whatever happens to you, you fucking earned it. Only that this will be the preferred strategy of those whose claims have been rejected or would likely be rejected by those who have the most information. Yeah, anyone who takes their alleged grievances straight to social media automatically distrust them. If they didn't even bother talking to the people around them IRL first before jumping straight into social media, 100% they're lying. Nearly all people experience disadvantage or mistreatment at some point in their life. Nearly all. Fuck, I would say all. Many quietly and humbly work through these challenges on their own or with the help of close friends and family. Only a minority will turn every slight into an opportunity to seek sympathy, status, or redress from strangers. That minority is growing, by the way. If eventually discovered, they can suffer catastrophic reputational damage or even go to jail. Unless they're attractive women and they cry, then they could get away with anything. But in the short term, at least, this group can receive more benefits with less effort than the former. None of this means there are no genuine victims. There are, but they're not online. Or that we should not care for and provide assistance to victims when we can. Real victims should get assistance. On the contrary, one reason it is worth reflecting on the system of incentives we create is precisely that there are general victims. Habitual false victim signalers deplete available resources for genuine victims in two ways. Not only do they make sure that the pool of available money to give is smaller, but the amount of people willing to help is smaller. If a person is duped by a faker, the likelihood that they'll help anyone again in the future is drastically reduced. So dupe trusting others into misallocating their resources and can initiate a dysfunctional cycle of competitive victimhood within society more broadly. For example, research has shown that people ramp up their own status as victims of discrimination when they are accused of discriminating against others, or even when they are merely characterized as being relatively advantaged. The phenomenon may help explain why it is common for people to believe that they are getting the short end of the stick in many situations. For example, in a nationally representative poll of Americans, roughly 65% of adults expressed at least a moderate agreement with the proposition that the system works against people like them. And roughly 55% of respondents at least moderately agreed with the proposition that they rarely get what they deserve in life. Hot take. There are a few unlucky people who they get screwed over, like they deserve better. But in most cases, you get what you fucking deserve. Most people seem to think that the status quo is generally unfair to them, as they're taking advantage of it as professional victims. And the habits of perceiving oneself as a victim and victimhood signaling to others are mostly unrelated to political ideology. As with so many sources of intergroup conflict, this is not a them problem, but a people problem. Historically, our ancestors may have been better able to discern habitual or false victim signalers from those in true need. Well, yeah, because they were right next to each other. Our ancestors were dealing with people in their own small town. In current year, it's people worldwide on the internet that have never met. We lived in smaller communities where we tended to know what was happening and to whom, and so those who deceived others were at higher risk of getting caught. And they lost everything when they got caught. In modern affluent societies, by contrast, people can signal their difficult to verify suffering to thousands or more strangers online. Although genuine victims may benefit in such environments because they can spread awareness of their plight and solicit support on a larger scale, manipulative individuals inevitably will use the same mass broadcast tools to extract resources and possibly even initiate a cycle of competitive victimhood that infects everyone. That's where we are right now, competitive victimhood. It's called the Oppression Olympics. Those who most vociferously declare their victimhood to others may often be the villains instead. Not may, they are. I have never met a virtue signaler who was a good person. I have never met a good person who virtue signaled. It's mutually exclusive. And victim signaling ties very closely with virtue signaling. Whenever I see someone that can't shut the fuck up about how much of a victim they are, I disengage. Nope, blocking this person, muting this person, not dealing with them anymore. I don't want this garbage in my life. And the sooner everyone else starts doing this, the sooner we can finally be rid of this bullshit. Oh man, I am so excited to tell you guys right now that finally, after about a year of build-up and shilling, we have launched Blade Devil on Indiegogo, and so far it is doing so well thanks to awesome people like you. If you haven't backed it yet, then please check the links in the description and check out Blade Devil on Indiegogo. You will not be disappointed. Looking forward to seeing you there.